Hello and welcome back to a brand new video on my channel. In today's video it could be one of my biggest, it could be one of my, or you could say most important yet. We're going to be discussing another big issue in football, but right now I want to put this video together. It's going to be talking about Barcelona away in the Champions League specifically. It's a really difficult subject, it's a really delicate subject. There's so much going into the topic that it's hard to pinpoint one thing as to what goes wrong for the Azulgrana when they do go away for the Champions League, especially in big games and tough atmospheres. What goes wrong? What needs to change? What are teams doing against us? I've tried to put this into nice bullet points for myself here and tried to make the videos digestible for you Barca fans or football fans all around the world to try and understand what's going on with Barcelona right now, what needs to change, and it's going to be a really in-depth study into what's happening for Barca away in the Champions League. And I think this video really had to be made by me because it wasn't just a Liverpool game, it's not just a Roma game. We went to Slavia Prague the other night and it was absolutely dreadful. If it wasn't for ter Stegen, if maybe it wasn't for the fact they are not, the most prestigious of sides, their finishing was poor in the night, they let us off massively, then it would have been another humiliation. And it was the same sort of mistakes that were happening, it was the same mentality issues, and it was the same tactical aspects of the Barcelona game that made this all happen. Ter Stegen recently came out in an interview and said that this is certainly a thing that's psychological, it's hard to pinpoint what goes wrong, and he can't guarantee that it won't happen again, and that's scary right now. I think whilst it is a lot psychological, there's a lot of players when they go into these games, they have it endured into their minds that it's not going to go well, and if the only way we're getting out of this is if Messi produces something magic, which he did against Slavia on Wednesday night. For the large parts of the game, he couldn't do much, and in the end it was also ter Stegen who saved us, and it's really individuals with the whole side letting them down. It's instilled into our heads right now, but taking the psychological thing out of it, there's also things I think Valverde and the players can do to avoid these sorts of upsets in the future. I think it's important just to pinpoint what's actually going on in these games and what teams are doing against us to ensure that these upsets happen, because teams no longer are scared of us. They're no longer scared of us at all. They're not scared of the coach. They're not scared of what our players can do, because there's no reason to, because essentially we don't do anything. They come at us with aggressiveness in their play, a lot of personality, dynamism, courage. They're going to be coming at us with all of these things, and we all know it. We all know. Valverde said before the game, this is what I think is going to happen. We know Slavia have got a lot of personality. They're going to get the crowd behind them. They're going to make things hard for us. He even said after the game, this was the game I expected. So he knows it's going to happen. But what he's doing is not anything about it. He just keeps playing the same lineup. He keeps playing the same tactics. And nothing's being done right now, which is quite scary in my opinion. We know what's going to happen in these tough away Champions League games, but nothing is being done. And teams are going to come at us with the same mindset. And why wouldn't they? We go into these away games with this mindset, it really allows rivals to play their game, because in La Liga often when rivals try and play their game, you look at Eibar with a high line, you look at Real Betis with their really high intense pressure. What we then do in La Liga is just pick them off. But in Champions League, when teams are coming onto us so much, we don't pick them off. We have no tactic to counter it, and that has to change. We're coming in with no plan, and that's a real shame. We've seen it in the games like the Liverpool games, we've seen it in the Slavia Prague game, and if it was Man City playing against us on Friday night, we would have lost 5 or 6-0, and that's embarrassing. That really is. There's no game plan from the coaching staff or even the players in their heads to get out and actually give the opposition something to think about. It's all about the opposition. Even the Liverpool game, Liverpool were putting piles and piles of players onto us. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Robertson, all way in our half. We could have really just picked them off, played sharp into the spaces and got points, but there was no tactics, there was no width, there's nothing going on, which we'll get onto later as to what we need to do to improve this. It's quite in depth, but what teams are doing is they're playing the exact perfect game they want to, quite frankly knowing that there's not going to be anything in their way to stop them doing that. But that's what teams do against us, but what are we actually doing in these games? Well, firstly, in these games we try and really go what Barca stands for. Valverde always talks about control, and he talks about this control in a really weird way, because I think his idea of control is completely different to what we as a Barcelona team actually want, because he mentions control, but yet when we have the ball, we prioritise transitions. We don't prioritise tiring out the opposition, dragging them around the pitch, which is what Lampard and Chelsea do a lot, switching play, getting the opposition tired, and essentially making gaps in the back four. We just play it sideways, play it backwards, and then play long. That's not control, I'm afraid. That's not control at all. And say there's a runner going, or just hack it over the top, hope it goes, and then immediately you've given possession back to the opposition, which is really, really poor. He also mentions control, yet out of the ball, we don't press to get it back, there's no pressing system, and even when we do get it back, as I mentioned, there's no plan of what to do with it, there's no plan of how to break these teams down, not enough studying into how to move around opposition. So he definitely has the ideas in his head. He knows what he wants to do, Valverde there, but the execution of it is absolutely shocking, and the team included in this, I don't know what's going on, but the pressing system's completely off, and the lack of control in the side is really painful to watch. There was a stat that came out recently which actually talked about Barcelona's pressing and the way we run around the pitch, and essentially we were the side in the Champions League who's covered the least kilometres this season. Now, why is that? Now, while that stat was shocking, and I thought, well, it's not really surprising, is that we don't move, we don't run to win the ball back. It isn't all about running in football. We need to come up with a legitimate pressing plan that minimises running, actually, but is also very effective, which we don't have right now. We're not running and we're not pressing. We're literally just standing there in a 4-4-2 block, letting teams come onto us and giving them nothing to think about the other way. And also what we do in all these Champions League games is pick the wrong lineup and pick the wrong player profiles for each position. In the future, I really want to do a video about player profiles at Barcelona and also positioning, how you can only have a certain type of player in each position. The front three, for example, of Griezmann, Suarez and Messi is catastrophical, especially for these away games. It is as it is, you know. They're so tight, it makes things really simple for defenders to pick the ball off, but in these Champions League away games, you need width. You need to stretch those wingers, you need to stretch the fullbacks, you need to push those wingers back and give them something to think about. But again, the lineup selection is wrong, the player profiles are wrong for each position. We're playing De Jong and Arthur and even Busquets, but they're completely lost. They're not playing as players that need to play. You would think that, you know, De Jong can solve this, but if we're asking De Jong to just sit in front of the back four and try and screen that, then it's not going to work. De Jong's a guy who wants the ball. Arthur wants the ball. They want players in front of them. They want to see the whole game in front of them. They don't want to be charged at and run at and having to move around the pitch a lot. That's not what these players do, and that's what we're making them do right now, which is really, really horrible to watch. So we've got the personnel, we're not using it correctly, and we're not fielding the right players in each position correctly, in my opinion. So there's so much going wrong, guys. You know, the mentality drilled into the players is completely wrong. I think you look at the choice of tactics from Ernesto Valverde in particular, but you know, we also saw this under Enrique. It wasn't too dissimilar at all, was it? It was pretty goddamn similar. You look at the lineup selections, that has to stop. Like I mentioned, you know, the players in each positioning, that really has to change. In the future, I think I'm going to do little separate videos on these. As I mentioned, you know, player profiles in each position, positioning on the pitch, or juega de posición as they call it in Spain. It's all about, you know, how you can have certain players in each area of the pitch, and also the types of player profiles that need to slot into those positions, because they are quite detailed topics. But right now, just in the Champions League, the player positioning is wrong, and as is the lineup selection. So then, guys, this is the bit of the video you've all been waiting for. We've tried to go over what happens in these games, what we do, what other teams do, what's actually going on mentality-wise. But now we need to basically pinpoint what to do in the future. This is where it gets interesting. So, number one, when we have the ball, in my opinion, we need to get rid of this idea of the fake control, really, and actually get proper control of it. We need to exhaust the opposition. We need to make them actually think about defending and think, God, this is an absolute pain playing against Barcelona. Because right now, teams would probably love it. Imagine just sitting there as a defender, watching them pass sideways, and then just picking them off whenever you want to. The minute you press us, you're going to get the ball back. It's as simple as that. So we need to make sure we need to make sure we keep close distances between players, and then spread wide when we can. Not just, you know, everyone in all sorts of random positions spraying the ball 40 and 50 yards. It doesn't work, especially not at Barcelona. And we also need to be way more efficient going forward. Doing this, having this control element will be so much easier for us, I guarantee you. Not just having the ball for ball's sake, which is what Spain do at major tournaments. You need to have a system when you have the ball. You need to have players going in behind, willing to run, willing to track back, and players who know what they're meant to be doing on the pitch and have new, fresh ideas. Also a pressing system, which I'm going to get onto in a minute, because right now, with Messi and Suarez up there, we don't defend. We don't press the ball when we lose it. Teams can play through us easily, and at the same time, we're not giving them anything to think about defensively. Also, we need a proactive solution when we need to hunt the ball back. Messi and Suarez up front, they don't press anymore. So in my opinion, you can only have one of them in the team at the same time for a game like this. So the Camp Nou, have them both, because they're excellent together. You know, these are some of the best players we've seen at Barcelona in the last decade. There's no point disrespecting them, but you can't take Messi out, so I would honestly just have Messi up there. Then he can just have a floater roll, nick little balls off it if he wants to. You know, you look at the Slavia first goal. He was the one who won the ball back, played it into Arthur, got on the penalty area and scored. He can win the ball back, but only in a certain way. Pressing is not his style, Messi, and having Suarez and Messi up there is such a waste of players. and it really is, because in away Champions League games, it completely messes up the pressing system. Guardiola often says, you have to defend from the front, and that's not what we're doing right now. Teams can just pass straight through us, and already they're onto our midfield and defence. Also, guys, lineup and player selection. It sounds so obvious, it sounds like such an obvious thing, but it really is an issue right now for Barcelona, especially in these away Champions League games. Of course, it's so important, how we have the ball, how we dominate it, our tactical play, what we're doing without the ball, how we press the opposition, how we limit spaces for the opposition, but you can only do that really if the player selection and the players on the field, the 11 guys there, or even the 14 once all the subs are made, if they're not the right players, then none of that's going to work. And for me, it's even gone past the point of just picking the best players for these games, because we've seen it. Look at some of our lineups in these games. Look at our lineup against Slavia Prague. Look how good that team is. Ter Stegen, Semedo, Piqué, Lenglet, Jordi Alba, Busquets, Arthur De Jong, Messi, Suarez, Griezmann. You will not find a better team than that in Europe, player-wise. You will not. But these guys don't have the correct instructions, and they're not in the correct system for the types of players they are. We already mentioned the midfield. You can't have a midfield three like that if your whole game plan is based around sitting behind the ball and then favouring transitions over dominative possession. You can't do it. And that front three, which has zero width in it, in these sorts of games, that will not work, I promise you that. So we need to mix up the players. We need to have players who will work for the system. And firstly, of course, like we mentioned, we actually need that system. But once we have it, and even without it, there is certainly different players in this club who will make things much easier for these Champions League away games. I'm talking about Todibo, I'm talking about Junior Firpo, I'm talking about Riqui Puig, Alenya, Ansu Fati, Carlos Perez. All really young guys, and you must be thinking you're crazy if you play them in these away games. But what have we got to lose? What have we got to lose? Because we've had the best lineup away to Roma and away to Liverpool, away to PSG, away to Juventus, away to Atletico, away to Slavia, away to whatever Champions League game. We've had our best lineup out there, our Gala 11 as they call it in Spain. But they've done nothing time and time again. It's time to use the new guard. Lampard's proved it at Chelsea. They go to Ajax and win 1-0. That's incredible. No goal conceded to Ajax. It works. These guys are hungry for the badge. These guys, especially the ones I've just listed, are even hungrier than the players we have on the pitch right now, guys. Similar to the sort of thing Lampard's doing with Chelsea right now. Teams need to emulate it. We've got players in the club who will fight for the badge, who will help us in these Champions League away games. It could seem almost, the most stupid thing possible to play these guys, but it's clear the likes of Busquets, Jordi Alba, Piqué, they have it drilled into their heads now that these Champions League away games are going to be disasters, especially Luis Suarez up front. Hasn't scored away from home in the Champions League in 4 years. I love the guy. He's been one of my favourite players at Barcelona in the last decade. He really has. He's fought for every ball. He always gets the goals when we need it most. But this guy away in the Champions League is a no-go. If we keep persisting with it, we're going to get humiliated again, I guarantee you. Ansu Fati, Carlos Perez have to play more, and there's also loads of other youth players who need to be involved too, in my opinion. They can save us these games and bring something new. We will dominate the ball. We will have creativity with them in our side. I guarantee that. So yeah, guys, that's where I'm going to wrap up this video. I don't want to make it too long. I think we've reached nearly the 17-minute mark by the end of this video. So I've tried to pinpoint quite a few things in there. It's such a difficult subject to put it all into one video and just statistically say what's happening, what we need to improve on. But I think I've done a decent job of it there. I really think new players need to be used. I do. Even with Valverde as the coach, it doesn't look like he's going to be going anywhere anytime soon. They're saying end of the season, but we'll have to wait and see what happens there. I really don't want another disaster. It's heartbreaking, it's heart-wrenching stuff at the time. But if we keep doing the same things, then what's to say that it's not going to happen again? It really will. I think we need new players, we need a new pressing style, we need a new idea completely when we don't have the ball and when we do have the ball. We honestly can turn these games in our favour. These teams are coming at us full blown in the head, leaving so many gaps behind them, but it doesn't ever feel like that, does it? When has it ever felt in the Roma or Liverpool games you're thinking, right, they're coming at us, we're going to counter them now and get a goal, which is how I feel a lot of the time in La Liga. When we play Betis away, when I see them running at us, I'm thinking, right, one Busquets tackle, one ball up to Messi, and we're in here. But in these Champions League away games, it's not like that. There's something that goes wrong. I've tried to pinpoint it here. We need to change things up to turn these games in our favour. And, going in with a 3-0 lead, meaning only one away goal in the second leg, and you're in, it's about as simple as positions get, really. For a coach, you'd be licking your lips at ways to pick off the opposition, but for Valverde, it just doesn't seem to cross through his mind. The players don't seem up for it. We need to change this massively, guys. So yeah, I've tried to go through there. I think I'm going to be making some more videos in the next couple of months, just discussing player position for Barca, player profiles in each position, as I mentioned a lot of time or various times throughout the video. But for now, guys, drop a like if you have enjoyed this sort of content I'm going to be making on this channel. Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Goodbye.